lose by double digits to Louisville, if you're losing that game like they did yesterday, then every single ACC game is on the table, right? It is if you're not beating Louisville, or at least within a possession of Louisville, there's not a game on your schedule that you just chalk up as a W. And Louisville is good, don't get me wrong. I mean, good might not be the right word. The bottom part of the ACC, but there's a lot of middle in the ACC.
I mean, that roster is a complete turnover from what it was a year ago, literally.
Almost, yeah, it actually is.
It is 100%.
Right?
Yeah,
100%. So and UNC was not. There's problems there, and I think this is actually funny because these two schools hate when I compare them. So I'm going to compare them cross sport. UNC basketball is in an eerily similar situation to where NC State football was at a similar part of their year. And what I mean by that is you came into the year with super high expectations, right? NC State football was talking ACC championship, college football playoff, all this stuff. UNC was a top 10 team in the country coming into the year with a returning ACC player of the year and some big-time recruits. Grayson McCall, Casey Concepcion, Jordan Waters, kind of like that's what we're putting our entire season on. These guys are studs for NC State football. Well, it ended up being C.J. Bailey and Hollywood Smothers as they pivoted midseason. UNC basketball, R.J. Davis, Seth Trimble coming back. These are the guys coming into the season. That's who you sent to ACC tip-off. Well, I think it might be time to pivot, and you may have already seen it happening because Ian Jackson has led the team in shooting attempts, the last 3 games, even with R.J. Davis on the floor. Drake Powell, if you want to step up, that's what it has to be. And that is kind of what I'm getting at here. It's time to throw out what you thought this season was going to be and pivot from let's go chase these lofty goals to let's prevent disaster. If NC State didn't make a bowl game, it would have been a disaster. They barely got above that. You might still call it a disaster, but at least it's not a full-blown disaster. And what else do they have? Well, they turned the keys over to some young guys, some guys who you hope will be back next year, who by all accounts look like they're going to be back this year. So you have a little bit of hope heading into the next year. UNC, you hate to say it because R.J. Davis is a legend. And Drake Powell and Ian Jackson might not be back either because in basketball you can bounce after 1 year if you're good enough. But there has to be a changing of the guard. There has to be and I'm not saying like R.J. Davis goes to the bench. I'm just saying that it's Ian Jackson's squad. Socially, it can be R.J. Davis. He can be the guy that goes out for the captains. He can be the guy that holds the players-only meetings when teams are going in the wrong direction. But Ian Jackson is good, man. And it's no longer his time to concede to the veterans. It's no longer his time to say, well, they're here. Let me get in where I fit in. It's now we build around you. Because what you put on the floor against Louisville and what you put on the floor in darn near every non-conference game other than UCLA and Dayton, and really just a half against Dayton, that's not acceptable. Right? Part of the goal or the reason why a blue blood is a blue blood, why UNC is UNC, is because everyone goes there saying we can compete for a national championship every year. You don't go there to be a part of building something. You go there because it's built and you want to get there and have the opportunity to have the highest level of success. If once you realize that's not happening for a season, nothing's too precious. Hubert Davis, their head coach, was asked why UNC struggled down the stretch. This was his answer.
Throughout the entire game, but especially in, late game situations, 4 minutes to go, the discipline and details just have to be there. I mean, you've got to defensively, you got to get stops. You got to defend without fouling. You've got to box out. You've got to get loose balls. Offensively, you have to execute. And when I mean execute, it's not just, I'm not talking about just being able to score in those situations. It's also the stuff that sets up the shot, the screen, the being in the right spot, setting the screen, setting your man up, going to the offensive.
They have Roderick Daniels
different stuff like that we just got to get better at and more consistent at.
better, more consistent. You can put anything in there. The team's not playing well enough. The team's not playing well enough. And this is the last comparison from the NC State football team to the UNC basketball team I'll make. But once you hit this point in the season, questions start to get asked. Questions start to get asked. And what I mean by that is the Field of 68 podcast, what is it, John Goodman, a part of it. They had a
Jeff Goodman.
What did I say, John Goodman?
Yeah.
Different Goodman. Jeff Goodman, part of it. They put out a little piece of content. Said, it's time to have a real, and they capitalized real because, got to let them know. It's time to have a real talk about Hubert Davis. That's coming from them, not me.
There are a lot of UNC fans have been saying that same thing for a little bit now.
There were similar deals about the Dave Doran run, and there are similar deals about the Dave Doran run. It's part of it is it's hard to turn things around when you're having to constantly answer questions about things that you don't know how or don't want to talk about. The easiest way to get those questions to stop being asked is to just win a bunch of games. Right? You very rarely hear questions about your coach on a 2-game win streak. Even if the questions are still out there by the fan base and everything else, it's just crazy how recency bias happens. UNC went from, at the beginning of the year, top 10 team in the country, thinking national championship, thinking we're going to be one of the flag bearers of the ACC, with this, that, and the third, to now where it's you just have to play well enough to where the negative cloud doesn't sit around your program. That is a drastic change in expectations. But it needs to happen. You can't walk around losing games to Louisville, but carrying yourself like a top 10 team in the country. You can't walk into games and expect them to, meaning the opponent, expect them to be intimidated and or feel like they have to give you everything or press. Right? Nobody is going to press against UNC from this point forward. They're going to go into the game as if they're equals. Right? There's get blinded by the pinstripes, right? Get blinded by the Argyle. It's just not going to happen this year. We just watched Louisville take it down, and they have a whole new team. Hubert again asked, this time, how was this loss different than the others?
In those other games, we were down 16 or 18. I don't think we were that way in the second half at all. I felt like we were always 2 or 3 possessions away the entire game. It got away towards the end, but I felt like we were right there throughout the entire game. And again, we got it. I think we were tied. We missed a couple shots to take the lead. We were down by 1, missed a couple shots to take the lead, and so we had our chances.
That's such a chicken or the egg isn't the right way to put it. It's such a in the eye of the beholder. How is this one different? Well, we didn't start really slow. Is that a positive or a negative? You still lost the game by double figures. And this time, it wasn't because you dug a hole at the beginning and then played well. It's because you just kind of played steadily a bucket or two behind Louisville. They got to do some real looking at themselves in the mirror in Chapel Hill.
A lot of soul searching.
Who do you turn to in tough moments? Turn to that person and have a real conversation. Call a friend, your mentor. I don't know who it is, and that goes for everybody in that program. I don't want to be sitting here a couple months from now talking about how they didn't make the NCAA tournament, and I don't have an argument to make for them. Right? When it's bubble time, when it's bracketology, I want to be able to have some cold hard facts that I can argue with UNC and not just be playing the abstract game. Well, they have an idea of they could be, they should have been. No, I want to be here's what they did. And if they don't have that, it's really just a discredit to people in that program because the talent, we've seen it. It's good.